Welcome to the Industry 4.0 Club's Fireside Chat. The club's purpose is to engage the power of diverse worldwide talent to accelerate the global evolution to Industry 4.0. We accomplish this by hosting and supporting respectful, thoughtful, and interdisciplinary open conversations and creating quality content on wide-ranging Industry 4.0 topics to expand the reach of our community. My name is Mike Ungar, and I am the CEO of the club. I have over 40 years of leadership and manufacturing experience, with most of that being at Michelin. I'm joined today by my co-host, Mike Yost, who's chairman of the club. Mike, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Welcome, everybody. As Mike said, my name is Mike Yost, and I am the volunteer chairman of the Industry 4.0 Club and Mike's co-host in this broadcast. I've been in industry for about 35 years, with the last 15 years focused on the industrial nonprofit sector. So we're excited to be here and welcome you all today.
Thanks, Mike. So we're joined today by Tony Huffman. Tony is the Vice President of Manufacturing IT for Georgia Pacific. Tony's going to be at the fourth MX.0 Southeast event in Greenville, South Carolina on April 22nd. He's going to be part of a panel speaking about converging your automation and data artificial intelligence strategies to accelerate your Industry 4.0 journey. The MX.0 Southeast event has become the go-to gathering for manufacturers in the region to connect, collaborate, and to learn from real-world examples of successful digital transformation, shared straight from the horse's, or if you will, the manufacturer's mouth. Since 2022, the event has empowered local manufacturers to advance their careers and businesses through valuable knowledge exchange and impactful network opportunities. Mike, would you mind introducing Tony a bit further?
Absolutely. We're welcome, Tony, and we're happy to have him here. He's passionate about transforming manufacturing operations, leveraging the latest Industry 4.0 digital enablers. And over the past 20 years, he has successfully transformed manufacturers in the electronic solutions, med devices, life sciences, automotive, and aerospace and defense industries. He recently took a role with Georgia Pacific after having previously worked within Koch Industries for Molex and several other manufacturing businesses. So welcome, Tony. Thank you for joining us today. And I should also apologize, if you are joining us online currently, feel free to ask questions or add comments, and we will do our best to get to them if we are able to.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. It's great to have you with us. So let's start out. Just kind of wanted to dig in a little bit. So you've had quite a diverse background, Tony, in your career so far. What's attracted you to helping companies with their Industry 4.0 journey, and really as somewhat now your profession?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, for my background, kind of evolution and where I would say evolving still is around how we use technology. I've got a background in industrial manufacturing, engineering, spent a lot of time in engineering roles, operations roles, quality roles, led some facilities along the way. I didn't really get heavy into technology until 2015, and Industry 4.0, it's been around since 2011. It's coined back at the Hanover Messe Fair, but it's since evolved. And as it's evolved, I've been able to get some successes and apply those better practices in the variety of operations that I've been able to work in. So been very fortunate to be part of Koch, which is a pretty large conglomerate, helping a multitude of operating companies in all sorts of industries. For me, where I see the kind of evolution and where we're headed is all around this employee experience. So how do we make sure that when folks come into operations, especially if their background isn't in manufacturing, they're able to get up to proficiency, get to high levels of performance, but also keep safe and make sure that they're driving the right activity at the right levels. And you do that via technology. So instead of coaching and mentoring and being able to do a lot of OJT, we're having to leverage and lean on technology just because we lost a lot of that tacit knowledge and will continue to in the foreseeable future. And so getting the right information to the right folks, that connected worker solution or vision, and then augmenting it with intelligence, Gen AI, AI, is really for me, more about the employee experience than it is about the value and the efficiencies that we gain. It's about better ways of working and getting them to levels of proficiency and excellence at a faster pace, so that they can contribute a lot quicker and work on
Yes.
the biggest value opportunities. So that's,
Yeah.
for me, the primary driver is to help people do their jobs better, make their lives easier, and give them the tools and insights they need, how they need it, when they need it.
Okay. You know,
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
yeah. So I really appreciate, throughout what you've just shared, that people-centric approach.
Hmm.
We know from studies that have been done that, 2/3 of technology projects fail because of people, not because of the technology
100%.
or the process. And so that people-centered approach is really important. Well, one, because it's, they're the folks who are going to make it go and sustain it. And two, they have that intimate knowledge of the process. So
Yeah, 100%.
that's wonderful. That answer. Mike, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about whether Tony's focus on the people and the alignment of the technology to support and enable them. I'm wondering if you see that as a corporate thing that you've learned being in the environment that you're in, or are you seeing that more broadly? What's your perspective on how well understood that perspective is?
Yeah, so the challenge in most organizations, we have this as well, is you've got to balance how do you run, improve, and transform the organization. The opportunity is how do you pull people out of the organization to really focus on transformation. And the difference is improvement is you have a pain point, you have a use case, you know what needs to be solved, and you have a sense for how to solve for it. You can build some type of technology or even process solution to get up to a better state. It's incremental. The transformation is how do we operate in the future? What does 2030 look like? With workforce challenges, especially in the US, we need to radically change how people interface with equipment and processes, and be able to really unlock that intelligence. And most companies are incentivized and organized around run and improve. Transformation in many cases is kind of sticking your neck out and saying, hey, we don't know how to do this, but we're going to trial, experiment, and then scale that up.
Mm-hmm.
We need to drive that culture of innovation in order to get to that vision state that we're trying to end up at. I was just in one of our facilities yesterday, and just listening to the operations and the struggles and challenges they have, and we'll hit on it in today's conversation, with applying new automation and not really taking into account the experience, and how we move from an abnormal state to a normal state, how they're set up for success. We have to incorporate those types of things. And it's just a different lens and approach that leaders and organizations need to evolve towards. How do you measure and monitor and drive transformation versus just improvement with digital?
Yeah. It leads me to think about the question, when do you typically engage the folks who are going to be impacted by the change? I mean, a lot of these ideas tend to have historically floated top down. When do you actually get the engagement bottom up, or how do you see that balance between the two?
Yeah, at Coke, we are very much a bottoms up and then top down approach. So build momentum. We have frameworks around how to apply innovation and experimentation so that we can prove out a business case and a justification to continue to scale and to support that. When I go into a facility, I'm looking for a level of maturity. It's a staged maturity that we need to achieve, and I will work with those individuals locally, but pull in global and support teams so that when we do innovate and experiment, we're ready for the next phase, which is solutioning of it to scale it up and get it across the entire organization. So we tend to go down that bottoms up approach, get the momentum, excitement, really solve those specific problems, but through a transformation lens. Like,
Hmm.
where does this fit into maturity? And this is going to set you up for what's next and what's next and what's next. If everybody localizes their solution set, we're not going to be able to get to the next phase. So you have to think about it from a methodology perspective to really get to that vision state again that you're trying to achieve.
That's a great perspective that you share, because I think it's really, really difficult for a lot of people to not solve the problem in front of them. And so you got to get after it and drive value there. But if you don't have an eye toward the future and the transformation and such, then you end up potentially boxing yourself in. And
Yeah, one example, again, I was just at this facility, and the intention was really to help understand where they're at in their maturity curve and where they need to get to from a capability lens. And the first conversations were just around technology. We have 50 softwares. How do we get to 10? And what can we do to solve for this problem? And I said, time out. Let's talk about where you're at in the maturity. Let's map those opportunities out, but towards an end state that we're trying to achieve. That's the transformation lens and way to go about it. It's a little bit different than your previous kind of Kaizen events, Kaizen starburst. This is, how do we think about transformation building upon each other?
Yeah, great insights.
That's really cool. I wanted to kind of talk about the panel you're going to be on. The title of the panel, as we said, was dealing with convergence of strategies, right? It says converging your automation and data AI strategies to accelerate your Industry 4.0 journey. And yet that sort of leads on to think that maybe they aren't converging, or even that maybe they're diverging. So I know you shared an example similar, but what else? What do you think is the real driver between the title of the panel of the?
Yeah, so I'll kind of give the Cliff Notes version of the input that I'll be providing during the panel. And I actually requested this topic for the event because it's a hot topic, I think, in industry. And if companies aren't having this conversation, they will in the very near future. We see a lot of advancement in automation, a lot of advancement in data. These Industry 4.0 journeys, Industry 3.0 was about automation, but 4.0 starts linking the two together, data and automation coming and merging as one. And so, what I typically see in organizations that have a high degree of automation is they'll have a separate automation team that build these systems, they'll go and deploy, and it's really geared around how do I set up and maintain versus really run and make sure that you have standard work for the processes that need to flow through that um, piece of equipment, which includes how material is introduced and how it flows through the various value chain elements, but also standard work around the abnormal conditions. So if something were to break, who do you go to? What do you do? And how do you become self sufficient in that manner? So think of an operation that you're automating, you're changing the dynamic for those operations leaders from having direct labor and being able to optimize flow to automation engineering and controls engineering. You're adding new complexity that requires more intelligence, and that data and the connected worker solutions are needed for those experts or the novice folks that are in operations to be able to troubleshoot and get things back up and running and be self-sufficient. We've seen situations where we'll automate an entire factory, and when it works, it's great. You can get to lights out. When it doesn't work, our ops leaders don't even know who to call because this AGV is connected to that MES, connected to that warehouse system, connected to this. We don't even know where to start. Why did it stop? I don't know. So you need that standard work embedded, and then the intelligence, the data that you're able to unlock those connected worker solutions for the various operators to get things back up and running, moving from abnormal to normal in a self-healing manner. That's where the two come together.
I'm wondering, Tony, like in a situation like you just articulated, something breaks. The folks in the plant likely don't care what it's labeled. They don't care it's Industry 3.0 or 4.0 or anything else, right? So I was just going to ask about sort of the key elements of Industry 4.0. You started talking about the standard work and things like that. Are there any other elements that you think are sort of baseline for people understanding that you're moving into I don't know, are they moving into a new era, right? Like how do you even position it internally when you're talking to them about leveraging these new technologies? And
Yeah, so let me run through some quick definitions first. So this is how I understand certain terminology and language, and it helps resonate the kind of maturity that you're trying to achieve. The lowest level are smart assets. So smart assets, predictive, prescriptive, trying to use sensors and asset information to get to a higher state of performance. Then there's smart factory. Smart factory is the orchestration of all the activities in those factories to improve and automate flow of material, flow of information. You're trying to get to a point where everybody's optimized together as a whole for the whole value chain. The next level is Industry 4.0, which includes all that, plus supply chain, plus product development, plus um, smart products in some instances. So it's a broader concept. What I primarily focus on is really that smart manufacturing, smart factory lens. And when I go into a factory, it's 4 stages of maturity. So you start with how do you standardize and stabilize your operation using tools and systems to escalate, problem solve, to be able to get the insights at the lowest level and the level of impact that you can, and have that empowered team to go and solve for things. Think of lean daily management as your outcome there. You're trying to get that in place, and you want to do that with technology because you're trying to unlock the intelligence at a later stage of your journey, and it's going to come from all those activities, the failure modes, the root causes, the
Mhm.
corrective actions that you're capturing. You then look at how do I enrich that with data? That's the digital foundation, this industrial data fabric. Automate that. You still see a lot of companies with whiteboards writing all that stuff down. That's good. You're driving a behavior, but you're missing the automation, the stickiness of it, and the metadata that you're going to need for higher levels of intelligence. Then you can get into connected worker. So that's when you start personifying and getting to that experience for the various roles and the orchestration of those roles. That's kind of the next phase of your journey. A lot of companies try to jump into that phase, and they're missing a lot of those standard work elements and the kind of the basics, the foundational manufacturing 101, I'll call it. That is then the the starting point to start enabling this augmentation and the AI and the machine learning elements. So you kind of need to go through those phases. Once you have maturity there, then you start automating things because you've already leaned out the process. You know what to automate, where to automate. Focus
Mhm.
on your pacemakers and bottlenecks. Uh, So there's an order of operation. You don't have to go necessarily step by step, but you need a lens of that as you mature. And there's certain elements in each one of those maturity, um, I would say, stages that you need to consider before you can make it to the next one.
That's that's really neat. No, it's you've kind of outlined the appreciate the steps of the process. Let me go something you talked about earlier. Let me kind of go maybe one level up, if you will, and ask you about strategy.
Hmm.
So, what are some of the key elements one might find in an Industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing strategy from your perspective? Because I think now you're in that kind of a role where you'll be driving those strategies, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, so strategy is a challenge, and it's not just strategy planning and alignment; it's the execution of strategy. And for us as an organization, we look at how do we get everybody aligned to a shared vision. Is where it starts. So, what's the vision? Where are we headed? What does 2030 look like and beyond? What are the associated um, vision statements that we need to gather and coalesce around? And then you start defining your strategy from there. What is the plan? Where are we headed? I was talking with another individual at another organization. He said our challenge and pitfall was our operations lead would say, "Hey, we're going to Vegas," and that was the strategy. And this person thought we were going to the pool, and this person thought we were going to gamble, and this person thought we were going to a show, and this person thought. So everybody had a vision that was Vegas, but it wasn't clarity wasn't applied to the strategic initiative. So everybody was going in their own direction. And so you
Mm-hmm.
want to say, "Hey, we're going to Vegas. We're going to play blackjack to win $100,000 to buy a new car." Okay, well now everybody knows we need to be good at blackjack. So that clarity is a big pitfall that I see in most organizations. We'll say, "Hey, we want to reduce customer quality by 50%." Well, it's not good enough. You need to get that's a piece of a strategy, but you need to get the clarity where everybody's pointed in the same direction. So vision to strategy, Then you can start getting into what capabilities you need. My example, that was, hey, we need to be good at blackjack. Well, we need to understand what capabilities we need and the desired state of maturity across our enterprise. We have a lot of plants and different segments that we need to understand the dynamics in each of one of those segments. But what capabilities do we need? What maturity do we need? And then you need to start getting into what's the architecture? What's the design today and tomorrow to enable, with technology, with data, those capabilities of the future? How are we going to get there? Each puzzle piece coming together. You can't just look at it by various puzzle pieces. It's got to be an architecture lens. And then you can get into, all right, what are the programs and projects we're going to stand up to achieve that? The pitfall I see in most organizations is they'll go straight from vision to projects. And they'll skip all of the middle layer. And so I spent a lot of time filling in the blanks and clarifying and get everybody aligned to
That's
that
great.
continuum, so that we're marching with one plan. There's not a plan over in technology and a plan over in operations, a plan in supply chain. It's one plan. We're all going towards the same direction, and we're going to do it within our domain expertise, but as a whole.
Great advice. I think that's really, really valuable for folks. I just want to remind folks that we are live, and we're talking with Tony Huffman, the Vice President of Manufacturing IT at Georgia Pacific. If you have questions, comments you want to weigh in on, please go ahead and add them in here. I do see that we have one question, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
It's basically about ROI, and I don't have my glasses on, so it's hard to see everything. But talking about the fact that a lot of companies love the story. There we go. Having an advanced plan with all these technologies is great, but they're hesitant to invest because they don't have an ROI years down the road. So if you could comment on how you see that. I guess also you talked about looking to 2030 or down the road. Are you talking ROI at that point, or are you talking about broad brush value and you get into ROI in specific projects?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks, Tim, for sharing that. And it comes up quite a bit. So a couple things. One, we're pretty fortunate. We're a private company, one of the largest private companies in the world. So we do have a long-term view on the industries we are participating in. And when I say long-term, it's 20 years. I mean, we're talking what investments are we going to make to set us up for success decades in the future. Not a lot of companies have that luxury. A lot of other companies will look quarter by quarter, even month by month in some cases. So we do have that to our advantage. I would say we had an senior executive at one point, this is going a ways back, and they said, if you're just looking at the financials, ROI and MPV, you've already failed your transformation initiative. The reason he said that is you need to think broader. And I look at it in 5 categories. Employee experience. The second is capability maturity. So employee experience is geared around the workforce of the future is going to have different expectations. They do already, and it's just going to get harder and harder to keep workforce and to maintain and retain those folks. You need to have mechanisms where their experience is better. If they come to your factory and still using paper-based and they go across the street to a competitor and it's all app-based and connected worker, intelligence, AI, who do you think is going to win? That's pretty straightforward. Employee experience. The second is capability maturity. Are you moving faster than your competition? Are you going at the speed of industry, or are you going at the speed of your company? And are you just kind of spinning your wheels? So that is key. The third is the operational KPIs. So what are the KPIs and metrics that are going to maintain and gain competitive positions in the industry? How do you reduce your cost to a point that it becomes very difficult for a competition to keep up? The third is financials. You do need a lens on financials, ROI, MPV, but the financials are from the operating system lens. So think of this hierarchy. You have technology enables capabilities for people, process, data, and tech applied through an operating system to achieve excellence. When somebody comes to me and said, what's the value of an MES in your deployment there? I say that's the wrong question. It's what's the value of the operating system enabled by an MES? So you need to focus on the value by site and see that step change as you implement new capabilities and new technologies. And you should see it in the operations performance, but also the financials of those businesses. If you're not changing the needle in sites that you're working at, something's wrong. You're not going through that layered approach. And the last is growth. So is this setting you up for growth? Maybe creating new business models, smart XYZ products? Are you now geared up for that new acquisition and can apply those things into that acquisition? So look at it from a wider lens. It's not just the ROI. And if your leadership is asking for that, I would challenge back.
That's great. I think hopefully that addressed Tim's question, and really some really cool insights you shared there, Tony. So I want to jump ahead and really ask you about the MXO Southeast panel that you're going to be on. What are you hoping that those that attend the event and listen to your panel walk away with after spending that time listening to the insights you guys might share?
Yeah, I would say ideally what we call it the human action model. It starts with kind of a sense of unease. There's a lot happening in this space. I'm going to try to educate as much as I can on what I see and I foresee with automation and data and how they merge. That should spur some sense of unease and give you some ammunition to go back into your organization and have a challenge process with your leadership. The second piece of that is there a better way? So I plan to talk through, okay, that might seem futuristic, but there is a step-by-step maturity scale that you can build towards to get there. You might be at 1 and that's a 10. I'm going to talk through how you can get from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and the ways to go about it, so that it's not just some grandiose concept from foreign and futuristic and way out there in the future. Because not everybody's at the same spot. So you got to figure out where they're at in the maturity and say, you're not ready for that, but this is an outcome that you can build towards, and here's how to get there. And then the last is, the connections, and hopefully there's an opportunity for people to reach out to me thereafter with more specific questions or details that they want to cover.
I hope they're giving you about like 12 hours to do this panel. If there's more than just you on it, there's going to be plenty
Yeah.
of stuff to talk
I'll
about.
try to keep it short and sweet, but there will be time afterwards. So.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, that's fantastic. So as we get ready to wrap up, Mike, any takeaways you'd want to share with the audience today from our conversation with Tony?
Yeah, a lot. I'd say get to the event, meet Tony, hear the panel, ask him some more questions. Yeah, the focus. I think the balance that Tony espouses is fantastic on so many different levels, from the employee side and the employee engagement and experience, through the capabilities, maturity, and such, is just really, really well grounded and understood, and the bottoms up and top down, how those meld, because you're solving problems, but you still have a long-term vision for transformation. I think those are disciplines that are obviously well earned from Tony and his experience, and people could get a lot of insight from. So appreciate that, Tony.
I hope so. Good. I'm glad it
Tony,
resonated.
yeah, Tony, how about yourself? Any last thoughts before we wrap up today?
No, I hope to see everyone at the show, those listening, and that will follow up. And feel free to reach out if you need anything. You find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty open, transparent, unless it comes down to pick a software for me. But otherwise, I can walk through frameworks and methodologies. Happy to share.
That's a great way to end. I think the message that you just shared is really an important one. We haven't talked technologies. We haven't talked software. We've talked strategy today and methodologies and practices. And I think that's really, really the heart of the successful deployment of smart manufacturing Industry 4.0. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So just to thank Tony and Mike, but Tony for joining us to give us this preview of his participation at MXO Southeast, happening on April 22nd in Greenville, South Carolina. We hope you decide, as Tony said, to join us at the event. We'll be there with the Industry 4.0 Club as well. And here's the link to register. So we hope that you'll go to this site and register to be part of this fantastic event in Greenville. The Industry 4.0 Club would like to encourage you to take action as well to advance the deployment of Industry 4.0, read an article, attend a workshop, or develop a smart manufacturing roadmap for your plant or company, or challenge your organization to move forward in the deployment of Industry 4.0. We would like to know what actions you're taking to integrate Industry 4.0 into your operations. So please share those with us on our LinkedIn page or on our website. The club routinely hosts conversations like these on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you'd like to join us on a future broadcast, please let us know. Again, our website is www.industry40club.com and or follow us on our LinkedIn page. So we'd like to wish everybody a good rest of the day and thank Tony again for his time. Mike, thank you as well.
Thanks, everybody.